Welcome everyone, we're so glad you made the choice to watch our show this evening and joining us for another episode of the Your Life Matters Show podcast with your hosts Steve Hodgson and Dr. Eric L. Davis. We ask that you please note that the information presented in this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only and does not constitute medical advice. It is essential to consult with a qualified healthcare professional for any medical concerns, diagnosis, or treatment. This podcast is not a substitute for professional medical advice, and any actions taken based on the information presented are at your own risk. We are so glad you made the choice to watch our show this evening and join us for a brand new episode of the Your Life Matters Show podcast. Let's watch what this evening's podcast is all about. This week's episode is titled Crackling Calm Mental Health by Firelight. Can sitting by a campfire really improve your mental health? In this powerful and calming episode of the Your Life Matters Show podcast, Steve Hodgson and psychotherapist Dr. Eric L. Davis dive deep into the surprising psychological and emotional benefits of being around firelight. From lowering stress and anxiety to strengthening relationships and promoting better sleep, you'll discover how something as ancient and simple as a campfire can help us reconnect with nature, with others, and with ourselves. Whether you've enjoyed a late-night fire pit chat or dream of peaceful moments under the stars, this episode explores the science and soul of why we're drawn to the flame. The earliest evidence of controlled fire use dates back to at least 1 million years ago, with findings in South Africa. These fires were crucial for survival and provided warmth, protection from predators, and a way to cook food. The campfire became a place where knowledge, traditions, and skills were passed down through generations. Stories told around the fire helped shape cultural narratives and transmit important information about survival, social norms, and beliefs. While the core function of campfires as a gathering place and source of warmth remains, modern campfires also hold cultural significance and are associated with traditions like storytelling, roasting marshmallows, and s'mores. Campfire ceremonies, such as the campfire ash ceremony, are often used to reinforce the sense of community and shared history. These ceremonies often involve storytelling, reflection, and the passing on of traditions. Campfires have a rich history intertwined with Native American cultures, playing a vital role in their daily lives and spiritual practices. Beyond providing warmth and a means to cook food, fire was a crucial tool for shaping their environment, managing resources, and engaging in cultural ceremonies. It had very important spiritual significance. Fire was a cleansing and purifying element in religious ceremonies and rituals, symbolizing a connection to the spiritual world. Tribes gathered around a central fire for important discussions and decision-making. The extinguishing of old fires and lighting of new ones marked the end of old cycles and the beginning of new ones, signifying renewal and transformation. Tonight's episode will uncover the science behind fire's calming effect on the brain, the powerful social bonding effect around a fire, how campfires reduce stress, anxiety, and blood pressure, how firelight supports deeper sleep and mindfulness, health cautions, and when fires may trigger trauma. So, take a breath, imagine the crackle, and join us for a warm and enlightening conversation. Here are your hosts.
Well, howdy, everybody, and welcome back to another new episode of the Your Life Matters Show podcast. I'm your host, Steve Hodgson, and joined as always by our co-host and debonair psychotherapist, Dr. Eric L. Davis. Dr. Davis, it's been a pretty good week, so far. We're having some good response from our listeners.
Yeah.
Subscribers are growing, the episodes are growing, and trust me, we really thank everybody out there for
Absolutely.
that. And, it's really good. And, we're trying to do more episodes that relate to you two, that relate to everyone. Last week's laughter episode was a good example of that. And, this week, Campfires is another one that I think 99% of us can relate to. Maybe unless you live in the city and don't get a chance to ever experience one. So today we're going to bring you a topic that spreads to something deep within the human spirit. So I want you to do something for me again. I want you to close your eyes and picture this. You're sitting by a campfire under a starry sky. You can feel the warmth of the flames. Okay, you can listen to the crackle of the wood and the way time just seems to slow down. You're noticing how conversation seems to get more real. Your thoughts quiet down. Your stress starts to just melt away. Okay, you can open your eyes now, but I'm betting you probably didn't want to leave that place. I know I wouldn't. But it turns out that feeling you experience isn't just basically in your head, that there's real science behind that. So in today's episode, we're going to explore the mental health benefits of being around the campfire, how firelight can reduce anxiety, help us sleep better, improve social bonding, mimic the effects of meditation, and so much more. From ancient rituals to backyard fire pits, the simple act of gathering around a flame has helped humans connect, heal, and feel safe for thousands of years. And tonight we're going to break down the research. We're going to share some personal stories. And yes, we're also going to talk about some of the potential risks, because not everything about fire is just warm and cozy. Hey guys, I'd like to pause the show a moment and welcome our newest sponsor, Waypost Counseling. Now, Waypost services are available to anyone in the continental United States via teleconferencing. At the Your Life Matters Show podcast, we are proud to have them on board as one of our sponsors. So I ask that you sit back a moment and that you watch this quick video about their services.
Let's be real, life can feel overwhelming. Sometimes we lose our direction. And in those moments, reaching out for help isn't weakness, it's strength. You know, one of the most powerful things we can do for our mental health is simply to stop and ask for help. Well, look no further. Let me tell you about Waypost Counseling in Indianapolis, Indiana. Waypost was co-founded by Dr. Eric L. Davis and licensed therapist Aaron Davis. They started Waypost Counseling in 2020 because they wanted to create more than just a therapy practice. They wanted a place that truly walks alongside people through life's hardest seasons. And they offer more than just individual therapy. They provide individual and couples therapy, problem gambling treatment, and consulting services as well. They work with adults navigating everything from ADHD to grief, addiction to life transitions. Every journey is different, but our goal is always the same: to help people pause, reflect, and realign with where they want to go. It's actually where their name, Waypost, comes from. A marker on the path, something to help guide your next steps. And for anyone listening who's been thinking, I don't know where to start, this might be the moment. Therapy doesn't have to be intimidating. At Waypost, you'll find honesty, warmth, and a practical approach to real change. They're here to help you find direction and walk with you every step of the way. Whether you are in Indiana or anywhere in the United States, help is just a phone call away. They treat clients in person or using video conferencing directly from your home. If you're ready to start that journey, visit waypostcounseling.com or call Dr. Eric L. Davis at 317-762-0904 or therapist Aaron Davis at 317-659-0179 and take the first step. Waypost Counseling is proudly certified by the Indiana FSSA Division of Mental Health and Addiction and the Indiana Coalition Against Domestic Abuse. That's waypostcounseling.com. Your next chapter starts here.
We'll tap into some ancient, primal, and deeply soothing experiences. But by the end of the conversation, we hope you'll look at campfires not just as a source of light and warmth, especially on a cool evening, but as a tool for mental clarity, emotional connection, and maybe even healing. So grab a blanket, get some chocolate and some marshmallows, get comfy, and imagine that flickering glow of the campfire. So let's get into it. So, Dr. Davis, from a clinical standpoint, what makes firelight so calming to the human brain?
That's a deep question. I think it's a combination of things. I think if you think about, where we come from when we're in the womb, it's in the womb, it would be pretty quiet, quiet, warm, etc. So I think that there's with fire there, or especially with like a campfire, there can be a motherly aspect. I also think that a lot of times if you think of the situations where we smell a campfire, usually, I'm sure that there are some bad memories that folks have, but I think more often than not, it's you think of making s'mores as a kid or, um, sitting around laughing, telling jokes, campfire stories. There's that's what I think of personally. And I think it imprints us just like anything else, but fire can be so comforting. So a lot of times, I mean, this is a little embarrassing, but a lot of times screensavers for like a TV or a screen, you can have a fireplace or a fish tank. I love those. I use them all the time
It's
because
funny, this
fish calm
morning
me
while
and
I
fire
was
calm
eating
me.
breakfast and, I set my brain for the day and I started thinking about this show and something I didn't think of when I was researching the show was Christmas time and the
Hmm.
Yuletide shows that
Yeah.
they have where they just have the Christmas music playing and you put on your TV and there's a fire, a crackling fire sitting there and you may not even feel the warmth, obviously, through your TV, unless you have it, underneath one of those fireplaces. But, it's relaxing.
Yeah.
Even when people are gathered and they see that on a screen, it's just a relaxing thing to them.
Yeah.
So it's obviously psychological as well as practical
Yeah.
for most people. So why is it that we can watch a fire and it reduces our anxiety and our blood pressure? I mean, what's the science behind that?
I think it has to do with when we watch something. So when we teach mindfulness to clients, like if I'm having anxiety, for example, about something that's not happening right now, so like mindfulness is about we're in the here and now, there are tons of possibilities, but none of them are happening right now. I'm safe right now. And one of the things that we teach people to do sometimes when they're in the midst of that is to look around and like name things that they see, but describe them also. So like, black TV, white picture, blue sky, whatever. It's an attribute of whatever it is and what it is. And by doing that and by adding that extra focus, because it's if you really do it, you're not just making something up. You're not like you are having to look and process what you're seeing, and it makes your brain kind of jars your brain and slows things down. I think with a campfire, some of the best ideas I've ever had in my life came from just sitting in silence, or watching a campfire. Something, and kids don't try this at home. Something I love as an adult is a good cigar, a good cigar. Now, is that a great habit? No. But what I like about it, the mental health aspect that is absolutely beneficial for me are the conversations I have. If I have it, I'm just sitting, having a cigar, chit chat and whatever. Or if I sit down and have a cigar and just think, it just for somebody like me, because I stay busy pretty much just about all day, every day, having, scheduling that time and man, what a nice place to schedule some time, a campfire. That's just an added bonus. That's awesome.
I'll go tell you a little story later on um, about the last experience I had with a campfire. But you're right. I mean, even sometimes I find when my friends are sitting around talking, I'm just zoning out. I'm
Yeah.
in my own head. It's like it said in that little introduction there, it's almost like mimicking meditation to
Yeah,
me.
it really
It
is.
helps bring on that meditation. And I do that a lot. I like to sit, my wife being at school and soon will be working. So,
Yeah.
just being alone, if the dogs don't bark at something stupid, I actually get lost in my head a little bit. I don't mind some people mind being alone. I don't mind being alone. But
Me
especially
neither.
in front of a fire, it's so great. I mean,
Mhm.
we haven't set one here in Florida, and I'll explain that one a little bit. But, I miss being able to sit. When we were in Indiana, we had a fire pit,
Yeah.
and we used to use that fire pit all the time. I used to go to Lowe's, buy those logs that you just light
Yeah.
the paper outside and it would just
Uh-huh.
run. and just sit back and with people, and we would just sit around and just talk and have a good time. I mean, really, that's what it was about. So,
It's something I just wanted to point out. I also wonder evolutionarily, you know what I mean? Like if you think about it, cavemen, you always see cavemen, like obviously they're cooking things over fire. They're,
right, staying warm.
they're talking. Yeah. And so makes me wonder too, like, well, maybe that's just naturally what we've kind of evolved to do. Maybe there's
Well,
something to that.
I'll even go a step further. Think about the Native Americans
Yeah.
who spiritually used the fire for all of their spiritual dances and everything else. I mean,
Yeah.
that's like really, really important. In fact, I believe it's in the opening film of this is Native American dance that was going on there, and it's something that's really important, to them. So it probably does have something to do with it. So the light, the sound, the warmth, does that help people that are really suffering with trauma or high stress?
It depends. I mean, the first question I would ask is, what is it triggering things, is fire triggering something bad? If the answer to that's no, then I think the same type of thing. A person can just simply sit, take a deep breath, feel the warmth of the fire, have a blanket on, sit by the fire, whatever. And if they focus just on that fire, it really does. It slows our brain down. And I have a lot of clients because I always recommend like, meditation or prayer or whatever that keeps somebody connected to their spiritual well-being, whatever that is. And I always tell them, they'll say, well, I've tried to meditate before and I can't shut my brain off. And what I tell them, we will never be able to shut our brain off like that. That's not the goal. The goal is to simply allow the thoughts to happen and kind of usher them out. Something that my dad said, and I've always remembered this, he said he thinks of those thoughts when we're meditating as like, loud people walking into a movie theater, and he's like, and he's the usher, and he's just like, oh, hey, excuse me, here, let me, just ushers them out real nice, politely. It doesn't have to be a big thing, but it's not about not thinking of anything. I don't think that's humanly possible. It's not for me anyway. So I think
myself, I can. I have a wife that teaches meditation, which we'll probably have her on in a future episode on that. But I've tried. When I had the house in Indiana, I had the studio upstairs, and I'd lock the cat, dogs, everybody out. Okay, and I'd sit up there and just close the light. It was a small room. It was like an attic type room, and I would try to meditate. And all that kept going through my head was, okay, you still got to take the trash out. The lawn still has to be mowed. Okay, you still got to finish that website you were working on. And it's hard. I forget it. Just turn it
the thing
off.
is though, like if we can like identify the busy thoughts, you know what I mean? Like the static. What's cool about meditation though, in my experience, is when you are able to at least create, the slowness or that gap, you start to kind of put pieces together that, like you couldn't see them over the static, so to speak. You couldn't hear them over the static. Then it's like, wow, so I think that really what is important about a fire is it is a way to center ourselves. That's
And, a lot of people, I know myself, I solve a lot of those problems you're talking about at night when I'm sleeping because I can turn part of that brain off because, it's that sensory of just relaxation in the bedroom, which is probably the same thing that's happening with a campfire, except that you have a lot of stuff that's going to altogether encompass your brain. And heck, I probably could meditate by a fire.
yeah,
I mean, I
absolutely.
probably could if you left me outside someplace and where it was safe and stuff. I could probably easily meditate by a fire.
Now, don't meditate too deeply and fall
Well,
asleep.
yeah, or too close and fall in. Okay, either one.
Another thing, something I thought of too, for anybody that's listening, if you are considering trying meditation, and whatever that looks like for you, I'm not here to tell you how to do it or any of that. But if you're interested in looking into that, it's really just about you can focus on anything that you need to. So if you focus on the fire, that's fine. Like you're not doing it wrong. You're not meditating wrong if you're looking at a fire while you're meditating. But something that a lot of people, me included, have found extremely helpful is guided meditation because that kind of makes it easier. I'm still focused on one thing and I'm still having to process what I'm hearing and all that. So it's still slowed down, but I also I have to pay attention to somebody else. So that makes my brain be a little quieter, makes it a little easier sometimes.
Yeah,
I don't know. Maybe some people find that harder that way.
you were a business owner too. Business owners have a real tough time shutting off their brains. Okay, it was really, really tough. So,
Yeah.
what about like veterans, people with PTSD? Um, would Campfire really help benefit them, like being in that kind of an environment?
Absolutely. I think it could. Like I said earlier, when it comes to trauma or things of that nature, you just have to make sure, keep in mind we're talking about campfires in particular, but if a person, like if part of their trauma involves fire, obviously I'm saying, okay, we don't want to re-trigger somebody, we don't want to re-traumatize them. So, but no, I think absolutely because that warmth, and I'm sure, a lot of military folks that are friends of mine, they sat around fires with other members of the military and have good memories about that stuff.
It sort of opens your brain up. I
Yeah,
really do. I think it opens up a part of the brain that's always open. It's just that, like you said, there's so much other noise that we're distracted by that noise because the human mind and nature share a complex sort of reciprocal relationship. Nature influences the human mind, impacting our mental and emotional well-being, while the human mind in turn shapes our perception and interaction with the natural world. Sort of symbiotic there. This relationship encompasses both positive and negative interactions and are influenced by our physical, social, and cultural environments. So, Dr. Davis, let me ask you then, what role does nature play in all of that too? I mean, yeah, we have campfire, but
yeah,
nature can actually give us some very good mental wellness.
yeah. I mean, there's a lot of, I'm familiar with like grounding, where you actually go barefoot and stand in the grass, and the philosophy behind that, and I think there's something to it personally. That's just my opinion, but I think it's like we're reconnecting with Mother Earth, and it's like we're regrounding ourselves. Um, I think that nature's good because it's a part of us. It's that what I'm trying to say. Like that is our natural environment.
Hmm.
And nature doesn't ever feel cooped up or um I don't know about anybody else. I have bad days, but I'm never mad at nature. I mean, really, I'm never, I love being outside. I love the smell of outside, you know.
You got to remember, I was born and raised a city boy in New York City, where the only grass was being smoked. It wasn't sitting around that I saw growing up. But the moment I started experiencing backyards and nature
Yeah,
itself, it started becoming a lot different for me. And it's funny you talked about grounding and stuff.
yeah,
Here's just a little side note.
yeah,
When we do the paranormal, before we started every investigation, before we stepped into someone's house or location, we always pictured ourselves grounded down to earth, and
yeah,
we would envision a like wall around us that was protecting us. And that
yeah,
protection saved us from anything trying to attach itself to us. Because as long as we stayed grounded and that ball was welded into the ground, into Mother Earth, you were
yeah,
protected. And we always went into every investigation that way. Jan and I, and probably a couple of others investigators, because we felt it protected us
yeah,
against things that were around it. Because, and that Native Americans felt that way. You
yeah,
connected with their, they call it witches and stuff now. some of the stuff that you're seeing, Wiccan and witches, are just reconnecting with Earth.
Mhm.
And they're not worshiping Earth as far as like you worship God or something, but they're worshiping the planet. And I
Yeah.
think if we all took care of the planet a little bit, we'd probably be better off as
I
well.
wish I could argue that, but I sure can't.
So, why do you think people open up emotionally and have deeper conversations around the fire? Just friends.
I think, when I say intimacy, I don't mean sexual
Right.
intimacy, but because I think, a lot of intimate relationships happen or are born around a campfire. Um, I'm sitting here trying to run through, my list of friends in my head. Like, did I meet any of them by a camp? I have no idea, but I'll tell you, I've got a lot of good memories with them from around campfires at different people's houses, and you know, laughing so hard we couldn't hardly stand it. I mean, I think it adds a layer of intimacy. If you think about it, it's dark, it's dim lighting. Um, and I think people just feel more open and more vulnerable.
I noticed a lot of people, well, at least in Indiana, I noticed, and even Kentucky, would go down to Gatlinburg in Tennessee
Mhm.
or Pigeon Forge. Yeah, there were one or two of them that wanted to go to the Christmas shop that was open all year and stuff, but a lot of the people I knew loved to go there just to enjoy nature.
Yeah.
You're in the middle of the woods and stuff. How many people go hiking, every day? I have
Yeah.
a friend of mine in California, which I guess amongst breathing in the pollution, but walks along the different hiking trails that go
Yeah.
like a little bit up in the mountains. And this woman walks every day about an hour and a half.
Yeah.
It just grounds her back from, she works in the finance industry, banking and stuff. It just takes her out of that and puts her back, puts your brain grounded. And I guess the same thing really we could say about a beach. If you're sitting by the ocean,
Yeah.
because I can tell you that myself when we go to the Bahamas, Jen used to love to walk along the beach and pick up seashells and stuff. And that just wasn't for me. I'm like, see, I'll be sitting right here. I can watch you as you're going down there.
Yeah.
But when she walked away and the beach was quiet, I would just look out at the ocean. And as far as I could see from left to right, there was just beach and blue water.
Yeah.
And I would just sit there and I'd forget everything. Same way I do with a campfire. I would sit and forget everything and just enjoy nature.
Yeah.
But because water and ocean and sand, that's all nature and stuff. And it helps you forget about, when I'd go on vacation, I wanted to relax from doing 80, 90 hours a week at Street Smart,
Yeah.
Doing different films and everything else. You went there and you just turned it all off when you were there. It was better than, going to the shows. No, I just sat there and just
Yeah.
relaxed. And same thing, almost like a meditation. Yeah, I wasn't trying to meditate, but you'd be surprised. Those things just like automatically turn off.
Yeah.
A lot of those triggers. And I think campfires do the same thing. You just turn those triggers off.
I think I read somewhere, and I have no idea where, so I'm not even going to pretend like I know where the source was, but I saw some information somewhere. It was saying that, what do the most here one of the most overlooked things that successful people do every day, and it was they spend time in silence.
Mm-hmm.
They spend a little bit of time in silence, and um, I mean, I can see where that's helpful because you have to let the steam roll off. You have to have some time to just kind of let the dust settle from the day or get yourself ready for the day. You know, I if there I've never met a therapist that part of the treatment plan wasn't self-care. So I tell everybody, even if the only time you can squeeze for yourself is 5 extra minutes, just get out of bed 5 minutes earlier and give
Mm-hmm.
yourself 5 minutes later in the day. It might make all the difference in the world.
Or even for that matter, just sit in the bed for like
Yeah.
5 minutes before you get up. And, I think I talked about Rick Hayes. I remember his last name this time.
Yeah.
like I told you, he would say, sit there in the morning, as soon as you wake up, just sit there in bed and take in life, that was all around you. Just feel the energy of
Yeah.
the world upon you before you got up and before you started reading the news and dealing with having to take the dog out and all that other stuff
Yeah.
that's going to hit us. And that actually is a good segue into the next question. I was going to say, modern life itself has, pushed us away from all these grounding rituals. How do
Mhm.
we get more people to realize that, like you say, they need to take that 5 minutes and
Yeah.
I'm going to sound, and just chill out, man. Just like
Yeah.
relax during that 5 minutes and just allow your mind just to slow down. It's not going to shut down, but at least slow down.
I think that, the reality is it's hard to do that. It is. People have kids running around. We've all got jobs. We got bills to pay. I mean, daily life in the world is pretty hectic when you really, think about it. Like we're kind of just running from one place to the next, doing whatever all day long. And if you think about it, I mean, sometimes we're on autopilot too. And so how can I work anything out if I'm on autopilot, that's just my body saying, "Oh, yeah, just keep on going, just keep going. We'll think about some other stuff later." Or, when you do slow down, um, I think you gain perspective that it just makes a lot of things possible that wouldn't be possible if we don't slow down.
And,
Instead of move fast and break stuff, it's, like calm down and think stuff, or calm down and hear stuff.
and it's a thing, a lot of people won't start a backyard campfire unless, there's going to be a group of people over. But it'd
Right.
probably be a good idea every once in a while just to start a small fire and sit around there by yourself.
Well, they have those little solo stoves now,
Yeah.
and those I mean, a solo stove of any size is going to put off one heck of a fire, but even those little ones, I mean, you can feel the heat, and they're awesome. So even that's an investment that could be well worth the money if it adds to your mental peace.
See, and that's why I talked about those logs at Lowe's, the
Yeah,
fireplace logs, I think they call them. Don't go through all the hassle of trying to get a fire started and everything else.
yeah.
You just lay that thing in the middle of the little portable fire pit. Just
Mhm.
light a lighter, light the paper on the outside. That's all you
Yeah.
do. And just sit back, and within 5 minutes, you got yourself a nice thing that you don't have to take care of. It's going to take care of itself and going to burn for 3 or 4 hours at a time. And just sit back and enjoy it and have a nice quiet time. I mean, some people, they want to have a glass of wine if they want to. They do that
Yeah.
in a bath. It's basically the same thing as being in a bath, private
Yeah.
by yourself. It's a different way to relax.
Another thing you can do, I didn't really think about this, but you could also just have, like, there have been a few times in my life when I just, for whatever reason, I was like, I'm going to have a candlelight dinner for myself, and I would grill a steak or something or whatever, make whatever comfort food I wanted, and, light a candle or two and just sit there and just kind of, sometimes I'd listen to music, but that's those small pieces of time that are just for us where we can actually, where things are quiet enough that we can hear what's really going on in our head. I think that is one of the most irreplaceable, most indispensable parts of therapy, is just the self-care and taking time.
Think about how many people you've heard say, I gotta have a vacation. I gotta go. I'm so burnt out and stressed up. If you took that 5 minutes every day, or even if you took 20 minutes, once a week, and
Yeah,
sat out by a campfire, or even like you said, just light some candles and have a quiet
yeah,
dinner, you know, you'll be able to deal with the stress a little better. It's probably better for your heart because you're
yeah,
going to slow down that strong pumpingness of blood running through your veins, and
yeah,
it brings your whole stress level down. And, you know, I have too many friends that work like 70, 80, 90 hours a week. And
yeah,
I keep telling them, take it from the wisdom of old age. I've seen too many people who are doing that just die young,
Yeah.
and it's not worth it. And I'm sure if they had their chance to do it over, they would take that 5-10 minutes a day
Yeah.
and just relax and chill
Well,
out.
it's important. I ask an example that I use, with clients a lot of times when we're talking about self-care or recovery or, any behavioral health, mental health stuff, is I'll say, when's the last time you're on a flight, and pretty recently. And I was like, did did the flight attendants talk about when the mask comes down, falls from the ceiling? And, do you remember what they said about a baby? And they're like, no. And I said, well, they tell you, they say, if the mask drops, what do you do? And they're like, oh, you put the mask on the baby. And I said, no, you have to put your mask on first, because if you pass out, there's not going to be anybody to put the mask on the baby.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of that sort of thing where, good people want to help others, but it's important that we keep our perspective, and that we look out for our own emotional health and so forth. And sometimes boundaries are a really important thing. And just having some time to set, you can call it a by yourself meeting or anything you want, but I just think that's so important. I really do.
The whole time I was researching the show, I kept thinking about an investigation that our paranormal group did, and we did it in upstate New York, and it was right by Niagara Falls. Now, I know it's probably going to surprise people, but a lot of New Yorkers have never been to Niagara Falls, even though it's in upstate New York, and I was one of them. I lived there 40 years.
Buffalo is it Buffalo that's on the New
Buffalo,
York
right.
side? Okay.
It's still up to, but it's up that way.
Yeah.
But the reason we went, where there were two places we wanted to investigate. One was an old sanatorium, but one about 5 minutes away from that, I mean, it's a couple of miles away, was this place called the Hinsdale House, and another really haunted paranormal location. So I know we drove up, Elvin and his wife drove up from Ohio, and we had two other investigators from Indiana. They drove up. And we all went to the falls first. We spent like a day in a hotel up by the falls. And then the next day we all drove to the hotel where we were going to stay overnight. But when we did the Hinsdale house, one of the things, it's a great, beautiful old house, but big, in the woods type of thing, big property. But they had this huge fire pit that was out back. And, when they showed us the house, they basically said, there's the wood, there's the lighters and stuff. And if you want, we'll even start the fire for you, and you can take care of it during the night. And, he's like, yeah, okay, that might be good.
Yeah.
Well, during one of the breaks, because you break like every 40 minutes, 50 minutes, we all went and sat around by the fire pit. 2 hours later, we were still sitting by the fire pit and just so mellowed out and zoned out that, we had to remind ourselves, wait a minute, we paid to investigate this place. What are we doing here? So we would, go out and we'd break up in teams because the house was small. So 3 people would go in and investigate, and 3 stayed out by the fire. And then like 40 minutes later, they came out and reversed. But I remember how relaxed we felt. And I mean, I was already close friends with 2 of the investigators, but all of us became so joined together there because we were all enjoying the same thing. We were sitting back, 2 people were taking care of the fire. And, all I can remember from that, I had to actually think of the name of the place. I had to go back and look it up because all I can remember was the fire pit. And if you ask my investigators, they would tell you, we can talk about that. So the first words would be out of their mouth. Do you remember that fire pit in the backyard? Because to us, that was even better than the investigation because we all worked so hard. All of us had worked so hard, and it was so great to go out and just relax. And it's just sad, like even if sometimes if you do it at your own home, as you would probably know, you're still worrying about, does everybody have something to drink? You have
Yeah.
no there. Nobody cared because we were all on our own. Hey, you wanted
Yeah.
to get another Coke or a bottle of water? You got up and got it out of your own cooler because no one was
Yeah.
going to get up and get it for you. And we really had a very, very good time. Um, I'd love to go back and do something like that
Yeah.
again. I mean, I really do. So, how about, do you have any fire pit story you can share with our
Oh
audience?
man. I can tell a somewhat funny grill story. I mean, I guess that's a
Yeah.
barbecue or charcoal grill story. I remember I was I was grilling a steak and I was just using regular charcoal briquettes that I got at the store. And it was like old Weber grill, like just
Hmm.
a old school, had the charcoal at the bottom, whatever. And I could not get it to light for whatever reason. So I'm putting lighter fluid and it's like, man, it just won't. And I'll never forget. And this isn't funny, but it is now that I'm okay. I remember I lit a match and threw it and it was just like,
Oof.
and it happened so fast, just a big, huge fireball, it just took a minute to even process what had happened. So I'm just standing there and I was like, sort of like, I'm okay.
I remember he
Oh my
used to
gosh, that
have
just
hair
happened.
before
But
that,
then
folks.
so I feel I'm okay. And then I was on the phone and I walked into the bathroom and just died laughing because I looked in the mirror and the tips of all my eyebrows, my
Well, say,
eyelashes, even any facial hair I had at the time was like singed. And it was, I thought that was funny. But honestly, like all joking aside, I mean, I really, for me, I'm just sitting here thinking, like realistically, what does campfire to me represents my parents, music, a lot of things, time with family, time with friends, time alone. I mean, I always tell students that I think my opinion is one of the most important parts of learning is taking the time and stepping away from it for a little bit because you have to give your brain a chance to kind of catch up, you know? And a lot of times, like, I remember when, think back to like recording an album in a studio. It's, man, I don't know. We need to come back and listen to it tomorrow with fresh ears. And we would always laugh about, the producers had fresh ears. But the reality is, well, what he's saying is it's not like come back with a whole different perspective tomorrow and it's going to look, maybe it's going to sound way different than it did tonight after you've been listening to stuff all day long.
and think about it. We said that a couple of episodes back where he was talking about wanting to quit a job. Wait till tomorrow.
Yeah.
And if you wake up
Yeah.
tomorrow after you've
Don't
had
do
time
anything
to
rash.
meditate and think about it, calm ahead, things are going to look different in the morning. And if they don't, then go and quit your job.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, and I guess, it's important for people to realize that, all these things will work for a lot of people. And then again, they're not going to work for certain people, especially like
Yeah.
fires and stuff.
Yeah.
Now, before I forget, if people are watching this episode, leave us a comment about your campfire experience. What are your most favorite campfire experience? Because we'd love to hear it. And Michael Jackson used to, I think, in the back of his head caught fire from
Yeah.
something like
On
that
the
in a
on the
commercial.
commercial.
Yeah, the Pepsi commercial, whatever
Mhm.
it was. Yep.
I,
Now,
I just thought of one, Steve. When I was in high school, for whatever reason, I was outside. We'd had a big, huge bonfire the night before, and I was barefoot and I walked through the ashes and I went to the hospital. I had blisters on my feet. It was horrible. But that's my firewalker story.
see, the only other remembrance I have of a fire type of thing in New York City,
Hmm.
mind you, we were on the way to band practice. There was a church down there. It was Fred, my guitarist, and myself. And we had to pass, when we got off the bridge from Queens, we had to pass through the Bowery to get down to the lower village.
Yeah.
And we stopped at a traffic light. And that was on, I remember it was Delancey Street, was the corner. And in the center medium, there was a big, like, metal can,
Yeah.
with a fire going on there. And there were a couple of homeless people, standing around it. So one of them came over, and they used to, anyone who's been in the city probably knows this, where they come and they want to clean your windshield with that dirty rag. And it's like, no, don't come touch my windshield. You turn on your windshield wipers and stuff. No, no, no. And it's like, you go away. Thank you. No, thank you. And he goes, do you want to see what I had for dinner? And I'm like, no. So he turns around and starts walking towards about Fred's like, close the window and go. I was like, what? It's like, close the window and go. And I was like, I'm not going through a red light. What are you, insane?
Yeah.
Guy comes back with it. It's terrible, folks. I'm so sorry. I don't know why I just thought of the story. Comes back with it looked like a dog's head or something that had been
Oh,
fried with a bite. I
oh
went through,
man.
needless to say, folks, I went through the red light and I said,
I
okay,
hope so.
this was my father's precinct. That my dad was a cop down there. I was like, if I get pulled over for it, all I'm going to do is explain to him why I just went through that red light. And, if he doesn't have sympathy, then I'll pay the fine and stuff. But, we have so many different memories of fire and stuff that are great. Now, as I say, how much I loved it,
Yeah.
well, not that incident, but I mean, I loved campfires and stuff. Sadly, I can't enjoy that anymore. I have restrictive lung disease. Like, this isn't just jewelry, some nose ring that I'm wearing, because the smoke just wouldn't be good for me in my lungs,
Yeah.
my breathing. And while enjoyable, it can have a negative impact on lung health, especially for individuals like me or that have COPD, asthma, pulmonary fibrosis. The smoke from burning wood contains these fine particle matters and other pollutants that irritate the airways and worsens existing lung conditions and even can lead to cardiovascular issues. Now, I know myself, I have friends that lived in Westport in Indiana that live here
Yeah.
in Ocala, Florida. I didn't know when I moved here that they lived here
It's a
until after
small
I got
world,
here.
man.
And I put it on
That's a really
Facebook and
small
they were
world.
like,
Yeah.
wow, you live in Ocala? So do we. They're Brian. I called them the Ryan twins, but that's just in my head because they're both named Ryan. Uh,
Yeah.
one was a police officer in Westport. One was a reserve officer in Westport, too. So it's kind of interesting. One now, the reserve officer works for dispatch. The other one, he does something with the building department here in the city of Ocala. But they meet up like every 2 or 3 weeks. And he
Yeah.
lives down in Silver Springs Park, like right outside the park there, which big forest and stuff. So he has campfires all the time, and they come on, come down, hang out. We
Yeah.
eat food and everything else. And as much as I would love to go hang out in a place like that, I can't.
Yeah.
Both of their wives are nurses, so they understand why I can't. Nobody thought of it when they first invited me. But
Yeah.
they understand that even the fire shifts wind. So even if I sat not
Yeah.
upwind, upwind from it, I'd still get hit with it, and it still would be good for me.
I mean,
So
the good news is you can also, I mean, it's really just about focusing on something.
right.
So you can do that with a fountain. Go if you got a fountain in your community, go sit by it. Just and make sure you are watching everything the water does to slow your brain down.
Hmm.
And see what happens. Try it out.
See, and with those friends, we do go out. We go to restaurants and stuff together, and we hang out for a few hours, and just
Yeah.
talk and relax and have a good time. So, are there situations when a campfire might not be helpful? Take like what I think of somebody who was just in a house fire, or
Oh,
even
yeah.
California that went through forest fires. I'm sure
Yeah.
that they have issues. With
Well,
syndrome.
yeah. I mean, if a person, if, and that's what I was saying earlier, is that there are people in the world that trauma or fire is connected to their trauma, somehow. And so for those individuals, here's what I would say to them. I think that, um, I hope a day comes when you can take fire back for yourself,
Mhm.
where you can take that back and where fire doesn't represent whatever bad thing it was, where fire represents where you're at now and you made it through that thing.
Yeah, because you don't want to trigger them.
No,
You know,
not at
at
all.
a time
Don't
when
want to
someone wants to
re-traumatize them. I
relax,
mean, that, yeah.
they're going to start relaxing and think about the horrifying
Yeah. And
thoughts and
especially if it
sensations.
triggers somebody, even just a screensaver or something like, but like, I mean, that's really what I hope. I hope at some point they will be in a place, you know, where they can take back what fire means.
See, and you can get similar benefits, like you say, from other things. Like you talk about sitting around the fountain. I mean, you could use candles,
Yeah.
even
Yep.
inside,
You
sitting
absolutely
in a room
can.
full of candles, or like you said, the fireplace videos, which we were talking about,
Mhm.
fuel
Yeah.
time, or even if you wanted to add the soundscapes, those
Yeah.
little recording things that will bring you in nature. Those are, some people use meditation music
Yeah.
when they meditate. You could also use those soundscapes of just like the birds, or maybe just like the ocean
Mhm.
waves, just crashing. Closing your eyes, you just visualize, the
Yeah.
water and the ocean. And so,
I
I mean, I
found
could do
white
it right now.
noise.
I don't even have to close my eyes, and I can still see the ocean in the Bahamas. And I will go
Yeah.
back, Bahamas. I'm coming back.
I want to come back too. No, it's wild because I definitely, there have been many times in more recent years, where white noise actually helped me to concentrate better on what I was doing. And it would be, I have attention deficit disorder. So it's something that I just have to deal with. And it's not a death sentence. I just have to be aware of it and act accordingly. And so typically it'll be in an environment where, like, if I'm in my office and I'm working on stuff, but there are people talking outside and it just keeps drawing my attention. I just tried one day. I was like, man. So I just turned on white noise and I was like, this is great.
Hmm.
So anything that separates you from the static is a good thing.
I mean, I even used to put on headphones and listen to
Yeah.
music so I don't get distracted by somebody else. I can put on some calmer music.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm not going to put on Ozzy or somebody like that. I'm going to put something that's a little calmer, and
Yeah.
I get lost in that music. That's where Air Supply and all those bands came
Hmm.
really in handy. And you don't hear really the stuff going on around you anymore, and you can concentrate, especially when I was designing websites.
Yeah.
I didn't want to be distracted by things. Even when we do this show, I have one of my dogs I've closed in the bedroom. Okay. And it's
Yeah.
just quiet. I won't get distracted by him.
Yeah.
I have
Mine
the
are
little one
upstairs
walking
too.
around, but, it's no big deal. As long as I don't step on him, with my feet,
Yeah.
I'm fine. Now, there's one other thing I want to talk about for those that are looking to reconnect with nature, and that's wilderness therapy.
Hmm.
Now, I'm going to be 100% honest. I probably had an idea of this, but I never knew there was such a thing. And it says the wilderness therapy is a mental health treatment strategy for adolescents, and it's for adolescents. I guess it could work for adults with
Hmm.
maladaptive behaviors. Wilderness programs combine therapy with challenge experience in outdoor wilderness environments that kinetically engage clients on cognitive, affective, and behavioral levels. Sorry, that was what they wrote on their website. As you can tell, that's not part of my language, but sometimes called outdoor behavioral health care, wilderness therapy is designed to address problem behaviors by fostering personal and social responsibility and the emotional growth of their clients. The goal of the wilderness therapy provides therapeutic assessment, intervention, treatment of problem behaviors, stability, and lasting change. Now, I can keep reading about that, but I mean, does that work?
Uh, So yes, it absolutely can work. I've worked with clients throughout the years, that heck, probably it's more than 10 clients that I can think of that have been to something like that and really gotten a lot out of it. The problem is, and this is what I'll say about that, is there something to being in like either a beautiful environment or an environment different from where the problems typically take place? Absolutely. That it's hard to treat somebody's trauma when they're in a place where they're just being there is traumatic. So taking a person out of the environment and really being able to focus on those things, work on life skills, etc. But there's also a lot of controversy. So a lot of the things that we see out now, on YouTube or Prime or whatever, a lot of them, there are a lot of like documentaries, and we're starting to hear, well, this place was kind of like a outdoor therapy and they were awful and they were being, So what I would say about those is, yes, they can work. I highly recommend check the credentials of the person, not the person. I want to know, I would want to know the credentials of the individual that is going to be interacting directly with the patient. Mm-hmm. If they're not a licensed clinician, if they are just, like, and mad love and respect to everybody in the world. Like, if someone's good at outdoor stuff, awesome. But leave the trauma stuff to the therapist.
It makes me wonder. There's a group of people on YouTube who I'm still trying to get in touch with. I haven't got an answer from. It's called the Blessing Boys, and this gentleman goes out. He's a landscaper. During the week, owns a landscaping business, and he goes out 1 or 2 days a week with his kids, and he's got 1, 2, 3, 4 boys, and they go out and they go cut someone's lawn for free. So I mean, really, some places that the grass is taller than the husband is.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how tall it is. But they'll clean and they'll fix the whole place up for nothing. And they do it. The Blessing Boys. It's based on religious, belief.
Yeah,
About giving
I have
back
seen
and
that.
stuff.
I have seen that.
Yeah, but the great thing that I look at that, and in reference to this, and when we're talking about wilderness stuff, I think if a lot more parents went out and did stuff with their kids as a family thing, because that's really, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but this wilderness therapy is more like, let's get out and do something as a group, and and let them work amongst a group of people and accomplish stuff to to better their but you could do that every week if you when you're growing up, if you even once a month. I know people are busy, so I'll go to once a month where you just go out with your kids and do something.
Yeah.
I know my parents, my dad used to take us, and even my aunt used to take us to Central Park in New York. And we used to call it mountain climbing. Because when you were 5, 6 years old, those rocks were like climbing mountains, okay? I still remember it to this very day of mountain climbing. We used to call it. My aunt and uncle used to take me, or my dad used to take, but it was to go out and you did something with your family. You went with your brother, and I have an older brother, and I still do. Okay, think sound like he's dead. But we go out and you do stuff with family. I mean, that's got to help from even a mental health way. It's got to help better not only the family relationship, but interacting with the outdoors.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
mean, it's like a good rule of thumb, or I didn't come up with this, but it's like, there's no medicine like a good night of sleep.
Mm-hmm.
Or there's no, basically just talking about that separation. Think of it this way. It's finding the difference between responding to things and reacting to things. The only difference between reacting and responding is the amount of time. Really,
Well, I've seen so many kids. My brother, I'm going to use as an example, every year they'd go to the same place. They go to Lancaster, Pennsylvania, okay, to go to Amish country. Okay, and he would drive up there and they'd spend 4 or 5 days going to the same places they go to every year. It's a little amusement park and stuff. I find it humorous and I laugh. I lived right outside of Lancaster. I lived in a town called Quarryville. And not much there, okay, in Lancaster. And I still joke with, my niece and nephew about it because it's, I was like, hey, you want to go to Pennsylvania? And they're like, no.
Yeah.
But you know what? They always did fun stuff together as a family. It helps with interactions with people. It helps them reconnect with nature.
It
And I
helps
think
kids
all of that is a
socialize,
huge benefit.
Yeah. Just being out and about. I mean, you're helping kids socialize. There's just make sure you're taking time for you.
Right. So I'm going to end up with 3 more generalized questions that I like
Okay.
to ask. So should people avoid talking when around the campfire with friends?
Should they avoid it?
Yeah.
Absolutely not. No. No. I think, there you can turn a boring time into a fun time simply by adding a fire. I mean, really, it just
But there
changes the
probably
mood
are
of
some
things.
things you should avoid talking about. Like our very first
Okay, I
episode,
got you.
like politics and
Oh,
stuff.
things. Sorry, I thought you said
Well,
should
I
they
did say it
avoid?
wrong, but yeah,
Okay.
I
I was
didn't read
like, well,
my
no, they
question
shouldn't
properly.
avoid sitting around a campfire.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, honestly, politics, religion, things that, if
the
differences
news.
of opinion are always fine. But if you can't, if you can't have a mature dialogue about a difference of opinion, then, that, so I think those sorts of things, I always say religion, politics, you know.
And if you got a question on this, go back to the very first episode I think we did of the Your Life Matters Show podcast was about politics
Yeah.
and things not to talk about.
Hmm.
And follow that and take that advice with you going to sit around the campfire.
Yeah.
Those are things you should just avoid and just not even if everybody agrees with you, leave
Yeah.
all that behind. You don't need that. Now, what's a good way to get children or teens to enjoy some quiet time around the campfire?
I I think the easiest way is to get some graham crackers, some chocolate, and some marshmallows. I mean, honestly, like, I have a little fire pit, and it's been really hot lately, but when kids come over, I mean, that's something that they always enjoy doing. It's like, oh, let's make some s'mores here. I'll help you. I'll teach you how to make s'mores. I mean, that is, I don't know. I don't think it gets a whole lot better than that, honestly. I think that's the cool thing.
And it allows them to open up a
Yeah.
little bit too, because as they start to get into that, they may oh come on, go sit around the boring campfire with a bunch of old people, because
Yeah.
that's really what they're looking at. But if they're sitting around the campfire making s'mores, roasting marshmallows, and everybody's just happy and they're not talking adult stuff, they're talking
Yeah.
like normal people and everybody's not lecturing, we're having a good time. That's so important for teens because that lets the
Yeah.
teens unwind a little bit as
Yeah.
well. So, the last question I'm going to ask, what would you say to someone right now who's listening, who's feeling disconnected, maybe overwhelmed, and may need a night by the fire just to reset?
You know, do it. I mean, seriously, I think that, it's not about it. What I'm saying is setting by that fire is not about solving all the world's problems. It's not about, everything's going to be perfect. It's about sometimes life gets really staticky and there's a lot going on. It's almost like, just a big mess. It's like a big knot. I always talk about that. It's like, clients come in with it's like a knot of problems. And then we talk about it and we figure out, well, here's how we start untying that knot. You kind of have to have a strategy or know what you're dealing with and sitting, quietly, taking some time for you, just contemplating things can make a huge difference. And ideally, you may even come out of a little bit of quiet time with an answer. I've had that happen sometimes where it's like, wow, that thought never crossed my mind. I'm going to do that, and so I think it's listening for answers from, ourself, the world. It's just taking the time for us to be perceptive to what we are thinking and feeling.
And you have to have a clear mind to be able to do that.
Yeah.
We had a guest Bill Bean on the show, and he talks about, how he just hears, voices, or that he hears voices. It sounds like he needs to go see Dr. Davis, but I mean, he's guided, I should say. He hears the guiding voices, by
Yeah.
just stopping and just forgetting everything that's going on around you and just, meditating to himself for a minute or two. And you hear that, it's may even be your own mind. And we'll leave it at that way. It's your own mind. But your mind is just, telling you what you knew all along. There's just so much distractions from it, you just don't hear it. So it's an important thing. And it's kind of poetic too. Something as simple and ancient as a fire can teach us so much about ourselves. We often look for healing in most complex places. Sorry, nothing personal there, but sometimes the remedy is just slowing down, standing still, just being in the present, whether it's with ourselves or whether it's with others. In a world that feels louder and faster every day and more complex every day, a quiet moment by a fire can be grounding in a way that's hard to describe. It's primal, peaceful, reminds us we're human and that we're not alone. Now, whether you're camping deep in the woods or just lighting a fire pit in your backyard, those flames can be an invitation to breathe, connect, and heal. So tonight, if you get a chance, light a fire, invite a friend over, or just sit with your own thoughts and let the glow do its magic. Your mental health might thank you more than you know. And remember, if you've been struggling lately, if joys feel really distant, please remember you're not alone. There's help, there's hope, and sometimes it starts with relaxation, resting, clearing your mind, and spending time with family and friends. Now, please, if you enjoyed the show, don't forget to like and subscribe and share this episode with someone who might need to hear it. Think about maybe, your friends that are thinking of something to do, and you guys have been talking about, we need to go together and do something. Share the show with them.
Right. Like you said, go
realize,
go to Lowe's, pick
idea.
up a fire log.
Yeah, exactly. And as I say, even go to a place like Gatlinburg or so, rent a cabin for a couple of days and reconnect with nature. Just sit and enjoy each other. And as I say, don't forget to like and subscribe. It only takes a few minutes and it really helps the channel. And I was serious when I say comment about your stories about campfires and time spent with your loved ones. We love to truly read the stories. And don't forget, you can visit our website at yourlifematterspodcast.com for more information about our shows and ways to contact us if needed. And if you're looking for links to Dr. Davis's, site and the Waypost Counseling or, our sponsor, all those links are right there in our description too. So, we both truly appreciate you joining us, and we hope that you'll come back next week for the Your Life Matters Show podcast, where we'll continue exploring the stories and strategies that help us live with more purpose, clarity, and compassion. And remember, on this podcast, we just don't talk about mental health. We celebrate the strength it takes to face it. Stay strong, stay hopeful, and take care of your mind and protect your peace. Stay safe and grounded and stay lit in the most calming way possible. Please remember, healing can start with a little spark. Okay, there's my humor for the day. So never forget.
You know what? I'm gonna stop time for a minute and say I acknowledge that was not lost on me. I thought that was great.
Well, I hope other people pick that up too. Never forget, your story matters, your struggles matter, and above all, your life matters. God bless you all. We hope to see you next week.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you for joining us for this week's new episode of the Your Life Matters Show podcast. Please be sure to join us again next week for another great episode with your host Steve Hodgson and psychotherapist Dr. Eric L. Davis. Please remember to subscribe to our channel if you have not already done so, and hit the like button if you enjoyed this episode. Your help with this helps us reach a wider audience that may need our help. Remember, no matter where you are in your journey, you are valuable and important. Take time to cherish yourself and those around you. Never forget, your life matters.